The ship was small. That was the first thing the aliens noticed when the human vessel appeared near the great station. It was not a warship with massive guns. It was not a trading vessel filled with goods. It was just a small ship, simple and quiet, floating in the darkness of space. Inside the ship, Ambassador sat in her chair and looked out the window. The station before her was enormous. It stretched across the stars like a metal city, with lights blinking in thousands of colors. This was the home of the Galactic Council, the place where all the great species came to talk and make decisions about the universe. Was not alone. Behind her stood a tall man with calm eyes and steady hands. He had been a soldier for 20 years before he became her protector. Next to him was a young woman who studied alien cultures and languages. She knew more about the species of the galaxy than most humans alive. "They are watching us," said softly. She looked at a small screen that showed sensor readings. "I count at least 40 ships around us. Some have weapons pointed at our hull." Nodded slowly. She had expected this. Humanity was new to the galaxy. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. In that short time, they had spread to dozens of worlds, built colonies, and started trading with alien species. Some in the galaxy saw this as impressive. Others saw it as dangerous. "Let them watch," said. Her voice was calm and even. "We are not here to fight, we are here to talk." The ship moved forward and entered the docking bay of the great station. When the doors opened, stepped out first. The air inside the station was cool and smelled strange, like metal and flowers mixed together. The floor was made of some dark stone that reflected the lights above. Waiting for them was a group of aliens. There were 4 of them, each from a different species. The tallest was a creature called a. It had gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes that glowed with soft blue light. Next to it stood a being that looked like a large insect with a hard shell and clicking mandibles. The third was a creature made mostly of flowing liquid held together by some kind of energy field. The last was a reptile-like being with scales of deep green and a long tail. The stepped forward and spoke. Its voice was deep and echoed in the large space. "You are the humans," it said. It was not a question. "I am Ambassador of Earth," she replied. She kept her hands at her sides and her back straight. "I have come to speak with the Galactic Council." They made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "Speak." The restless ones wished to speak. It turned to the others. "How amusing." Leaned close to and whispered, "Restless ones, that is what they call us. They think humans cannot stay still." Had heard this before. Many alien species had noticed that humans were always moving. They tapped their fingers. They shifted their weight. They looked around constantly. To species that valued stillness and calm, this was seen as a weakness. It made humans look nervous and young. The floated closer. When it spoke, its voice sounded like water flowing over stones. "The Council has watched your kind for many years. You spread across the stars like fire. You build and build without rest. You never stop moving." "Is that a crime?" asked. "It is a concern," the replied. Its forked tongue flicked out as it spoke. "Species that cannot find peace often bring war. The Council wishes to know your intentions." Took a slow breath. "Our intentions are simple. We want to trade. We want to learn. We want to live in peace with our neighbors." The 4 aliens looked at each other. Something passed between them, some silent communication that could not understand. Then they gestured toward a large door at the end of the hall. "The Council will hear you now," it said. "But know this, human. Many who enter that chamber with pride leave it with nothing. The Council does not give respect easily. It must be earned." Nodded and walked forward, and followed close behind. As they moved through the station, noticed that other aliens stopped to watch them. Some pointed, others whispered. A few made sounds that might have been laughter. "They are mocking us," said quietly. His jaw was tight, but his voice stayed calm. "Let them," replied. "Words cannot hurt us." The door to the council chamber was massive. It was made of some dark metal and covered with symbols from 100 different languages. When it opened, felt cool air rush past her face. The chamber inside was enormous. It was shaped like a half circle, with rows of seats rising up on all sides. In those seats sat hundreds of aliens, representatives from every major species in the galaxy. At the center of the room was a raised platform where the Elder Council sat. These were the oldest and most powerful beings in known space. Walked to the center of the floor and stopped. She could feel hundreds of eyes watching her. Some were curious, some were hostile, most were simply amused. The eldest of the elders was unnamed. It was ancient, with skin that had turned from gray to almost white. When it spoke, the entire chamber fell silent. "Human," said, "you come before this council seeking recognition. You wish to be seen as equals among the great species of the galaxy." "I do," replied. A ripple of sound moved through the chamber. It was laughter. Dozens of alien voices making dozens of different sounds, all expressing the same thing. They thought this was a joke. Raised one of its four hands and the laughter stopped. "The council has watched your kind. We have seen your ships racing through space. We have heard your constant noise. We have observed your inability to find stillness. We are an active species," said. "We believe in progress and growth." "You believe in chaos," another elder said. This one was its shell dark with age. "Your people cannot sit quietly for even a moment. You fidget and twitch like prey animals. How can we trust a species that cannot master itself?" Felt anger rise inside her, but she pushed it down. She had been warned about this. She knew they would try to make her react. "Stillness is not the only form of strength," she said carefully. The chamber erupted in more laughter. Some aliens stood up and made gestures of dismissal. Others called out words in languages did not understand, but the meaning was clear. They thought humans were beneath them. Watched all of this with ancient eyes. When the noise died down, it spoke again. "There is a way," the elder said slowly. "A way for your species to prove its worth. It is an old tradition, used by many species when they first came before this council." Felt something shift in the room. The laughter stopped. The mocking sounds faded. Now there was only silence and anticipation. "What way?" she asked. Leaned forward. "The right of presence, a test of stillness. If your people can pass this test, the council will grant you full recognition. If you fail, you will leave this place and never return." Looked at, and both of them nodded slightly. They had prepared for something like this. They had trained for years. "We accept," said. The chamber was silent for a long moment, then made a sound that might have been a smile. "Very well, human. The rite begins tomorrow. We shall see if the restless ones can find peace." As turned to leave, she heard the whispers start again. The aliens were already placing bets on how quickly the humans would fail. They expected it to be over in minutes. They had no idea what was coming. The room they gave the humans was small and simple. There was a window that looked out at the stars, 3 beds, and a table with chairs. Nothing more. Thought this was meant to be an insult, but she did not care. She had slept in worse places. Stood by the window with his arms crossed. He had not spoken since they left the council chamber. Knew him well enough to understand that he was thinking, planning, preparing his mind for what was to come. Sat at the table with a small device in her hands. She was reading everything she could find about the rite of presence. "It is an old tradition," said. "Very old. The records say it started thousands of years ago when the first species joined the council." "What do we need to do?" asked. Looked up from her device. "We must stand in the center of the council chamber and remain completely still. No movement at all, no speaking, no shifting weight, not even blinking too much. The species that holds stillness the longest wins respect." "How long do we need to last?" asked without turning from the window. Hesitated. "The record is held by they remained still for 27 hours. but most species fail within the first 2 hours. The average is about 90 minutes. And what do they expect from us? Asked. Minutes, said quietly. I found records of bets being placed on the station. Most aliens think we will fail in less than 15 minutes. Some say we will not last 5. Finally turned around. His face was calm, but there was fire in his eyes. They know nothing about us. Nodded, this was true. The aliens had watched humans from far away. They had seen them move and talk and build, but they had never seen what humans could do when they chose to be still. Tell me about the others who will compete, said. Looked at her device again. There will be 4 others, a diplomat named, a warrior called Chitter, a elder named Flo, and a hunter named Scale. They will be the most dangerous, said. Their bodies are liquid. They do not have muscles that can cramp or joints that can ache. But they do have minds, replied. And minds can grow bored. Minds can wander. That is where we will win. Set down her device and looked at with worried eyes. Ambassador, I need to ask, are you certain about this? If we fail, humanity loses its chance forever. The Council will never listen to us again. Walked to the window and stood next to. The stars outside were bright and endless. Somewhere out there, billions of humans were living their lives, building their futures, hopping for a place among the stars. Do you remember why I was chosen for this mission? Asked. Shook her head. I grew up in a small village in the mountains, said. My grandmother taught me to meditate when I was 5 years old. Every morning before the sun rose, I would sit in the garden and practice stillness. I did this for 20 years. She turned to face. When I was young, I asked my grandmother why we practiced this way. Do you know what she said? What? Asked. She said that movement is easy. Anyone can move. Animals move. Insects move. But stillness is power. When you can be still, you can see clearly. You can think deeply. You can become like the mountain that does not move even when the wind blows. Nodded slowly. I learned the same thing in the military. Before a mission, we would sometimes wait for hours without moving, in the darkness, in the cold, waiting for the right moment. Stillness was survival. Looked between them, and you think we can do this, you think we can outlast the... I think, said carefully, that the aliens have made a mistake. They see our movement and think it is weakness. They think we cannot stop, but the truth is the opposite. We move because we choose to move. And when we choose to stop, nothing in the universe can make us start again. That night the 3 humans did not sleep much. They sat together in the small room and practiced. They breathed slowly and deeply. They calmed their minds. They prepared their bodies for what was to come. When morning came, a guard knocked on their door. It is time, the guard said. The rite begins in 1 hour. Stood and straightened her clothes. She wore simple gray robes that the council had provided. They were plain and uncomfortable, but she did not care. She was not here to look good. She was here to prove something. The walk to the council chamber was long. The halls of the station were filled with aliens of every kind. They had come from across the galaxy to watch the rite. Most of them pointed and whispered as the humans passed. Look at them, one alien said. They are already moving too much. They will not last an hour. I bet they fail in the first 10 minutes, another said. The tall one keeps shifting his weight. Ignored them all. She kept her eyes forward and her breathing steady, next to her and did the same. The council chamber was even more crowded than before. Every seat was filled. Aliens stood in the aisles and floated near the ceiling. This was the biggest event the council had seen in years. Everyone wanted to watch the restless ones fail. In the center of the floor, 4 aliens were already waiting. The stood like a statue, its 4 arms folded against its chest. The chitter crouched on its many legs, completely motionless. The flow floated in its energy field, its liquid body calm and still. The scale sat on its tail, eyes half closed, breathing slowly. Elder sat on its high seat and looked down at the gathering. When the humans entered, A wave of whispers moved through the crowd. "The humans have arrived," announced. "The rite of presence will now begin." Walked to an empty space in the center of the floor, took a position to her right, stood to her left. All three of them faced forward toward the Elder Council. "The rules are simple," continued. "You must remain still. No movement of any kind, no speaking, no gestures. The last one standing wins respect for their species. Those who move will be removed from the floor." The chamber fell silent. Thousands of eyes watched the 7 figures in the center. "Begin," said. Took one last breath. She felt her heartbeat slow. She felt her muscles relax. She felt her mind become quiet and clear, like a lake without waves. And then she became still. The first hour passed slowly. In the crowd, aliens watched with hungry eyes, waiting for the humans to fail. Every few minutes, someone would point and say they saw movement, but the judges shook their heads. The humans had not moved. The chitter was the first to fail. After 90 minutes, one of its legs twitched. The judges saw it immediately. Chitter made a sound of anger and walked off the floor. "One down," someone in the crowd said. "The humans cannot last much longer." But the humans lasted. The second hour passed. The third hour passed. Still they did not move. In the crowd, the whispers changed. They were no longer mocking. Now they were confused. "How are they doing this?" someone asked. "It must be a trick," another said. "They must have some device helping them." The judges came forward and scanned the humans with their instruments. They found nothing. No devices. No tricks. Just 3 human beings standing completely still. Elder leaned forward in its seat. Its ancient eyes narrowed as it watched the humans. For the first time in a very long time, the Elder felt something it had almost forgotten. It felt surprised. 4 hours passed. The finally moved, lowering its arms in exhaustion. It walked off the floor with its head down, shame written across its face. Now only 4 remained, 3 humans and the flow. The crowd had grown silent. No one was laughing anymore. No one was placing bets. They were all watching with wide eyes, wondering how long this could possibly continue. Stood like stone. Her body did not move. Her eyes did not blink. To anyone watching, she might have been a statue carved from rock. Inside her mind, she thought of her grandmother. She thought of the mountains. She thought of all the mornings she had spent in the garden, learning to be still. The aliens wanted to see what humans were made of. She would show them. 6 hours had passed since the rite began. The council chamber was quiet now. The laughter that had filled the room at the start was gone. In its place was something else, something that felt like the beginning of fear. On the floor, 4 figures remained still, 3 humans and 1. The hunter scale had failed in the 5th hour when its tail had moved slightly to keep balance. It had walked off the floor without a word, its eyes fixed on the humans with a look of disbelief. Now the alien spectators were no longer watching with amusement. They were watching with worry. Some of them had started to whisper questions that no one could answer. "How is this possible?" a delegate asked. "The humans have not moved at all, not even their eyes." "Perhaps they are dead," a suggested. "Perhaps their hearts have stopped." One of the judges moved forward and scanned the humans with a medical device. The readings appeared on a large screen for all to see. The humans were alive. Their hearts were beating. Slowly, yes, very slowly, but they were beating. "Their heart rate is remarkable," the judge announced. "Less than 30 beats per minute. Their breathing is almost undetectable." Elder stared at the readings with its ancient eyes. In all its years, it had never seen anything like this. They were known throughout the galaxy for their stillness. They could remain motionless for days because their bodies did not have bones or muscles that could tire. But these humans, with their solid bodies and complex nervous systems, were matching them. On the floor, the flow began to feel something it had never felt before: uncertainty. Its liquid body was designed for stillness. It did not need to breathe in the normal sense. It did not have muscles that could cramp, but it did have a mind, and that mind was starting to wonder if it could win. Flo had always believed that organic species were inferior when it came to stillness. They had too many parts that could fail, too many nerves that could twitch, too many thoughts that could distract, but these humans were different. They stood like mountains. They stood like death. 7 hours passed, then 8. The crowd in the chamber began to thin as aliens left to eat or rest, but many stayed, unable to look away from the scene before them. Remained still. In her mind, she was far away from the council chamber. She was back in her grandmother's garden, sitting among the flowers as the sun rose over the mountains. She could feel the cool morning air on her skin. She could hear the birds singing in the trees. She was at peace. This was the secret that the aliens did not understand. Humans could not simply force themselves to be still. That would never work. The body would fight against it. The mind would rebel. But if a human could find peace, true peace, then stillness came naturally. It was not a battle. It was a surrender. Beside her was in his own place. He was back on a mission from years ago, lying in the snow on a cold mountain, waiting for dawn. He had stayed motionless for 11 hours that night, watching and waiting. His body had been frozen, but his mind had been clear. He had learned that stillness was not about control. It was about acceptance. You accepted the cold. You accepted the pain. You accepted everything, and then nothing could touch you. Was the youngest and the least experienced, but she had her own strength. She thought of her mother, who had taught her to focus her mind through hours of study. She thought of all the nights she had spent reading about alien cultures, sitting in the same position for hours without moving. She had not known it then, but she had been training for this moment her whole life. 9 hours passed. In the crowd, some aliens began to talk in worried voices. "This is not right," a delegate said. "The humans should have failed by now. Something is wrong." "Nothing is wrong," a replied. "They are simply better than we thought." "Impossible," they insisted. "They are prey animals. They cannot be better than us at anything." But the evidence was there for all to see. 3 humans standing perfectly still, hour after hour, showing no signs of weakness. Elder called for a short break in the judging. The officials needed to discuss what was happening. This had never occurred before in the history of the rite. "Should we stop the test?" one official asked. "On what grounds?" another replied. "The humans have not broken any rules, they have not cheated, they are simply succeeding." "But they cannot succeed," the first official said. "They are humans, the restless ones. It goes against everything we know about them." Listened to the arguments and said nothing. The elder was old enough to remember when other species had surprised the council. The universe was vast, and it held many secrets. Perhaps humanity was one of those secrets. The break ended and the rite continued. 10 hours had now passed. In the chamber, the mood had shifted completely. Where there had been mockery, now there was silence. Where there had been laughter, now there was something close to fear. The flow was struggling. Its liquid body was still motionless, but its mind was racing. How were these humans doing this? How were these creatures of flesh and bone matching a being that was designed for stillness? It did not make sense. It was not possible. And yet it was happening. Flo began to feel something it had never experienced in the rite before. Doubt. Perhaps it could not win. Perhaps these strange creatures from a small planet would defeat it. The thought made its liquid body ripple slightly. The judges saw the movement. It was small, barely visible, but it was there. "The has moved," a judge announced. The chamber erupted in gasps and whispers. The flow, elder of its species, master of stillness, had moved before the humans. It was unthinkable. It was unprecedented. Flo did not leave the floor immediately. It remained in place, its liquid body now trembling with what might have been shame. Then, slowly, it floated away from the center of the chamber, leaving the 3 humans standing alone. For a long moment, no one spoke. The entire council stared at the humans with eyes wide and mouths open. Some aliens looked scared, others looked angry, a few looked impressed. Elder rose from its seat and walked down to the floor. It moved slowly, its ancient body stiff with age, until it stood before the humans. "You may move now," said. "The rite is over, you have won." But the humans did not move. The chamber waited. Still, the humans did not move. "Did you hear me?" asked. "The test is complete, you have proven your worth." Nothing. The three humans remained as still as statues. A wave of unease moved through the crowd. Whispers rose up from every corner of the chamber. "What are they doing? Why do they not stop? Are they unable to stop?" Leaned closer too. The elder's ancient eyes studied her face, looking for any sign of awareness, but there was nothing. Her face was calm and empty like a mask. "Human," said, its voice now carrying a hint of concern. "The rite has ended, you must stop now." Minutes passed. The whispers grew louder. Some aliens began to leave the chamber, too disturbed to watch any longer. And then finally blinked. It was a small movement, just the closing and opening of her eyes, but it meant everything. She was still there. She was still aware. She had simply chosen not to move. When spoke, her voice was soft but clear. Everyone in the chamber heard her words. "We will stop when we choose to stop," she said, "not before." Step back. In the elder's ancient eyes, there was something new, something the aliens had not felt toward humans before. It was respect. 12 hours had passed since the rite began, and the humans still had not moved. The council chamber was nearly empty now. Most of the aliens had left, unable to watch any longer. Some had gone to sleep. Others had returned to their ships, wanting to be far away from whatever was happening on the station. Only a few remained in their seats, watching with eyes that held more fear than curiosity. Elder had not moved from the floor. The ancient stood a few feet from the humans, studying them with the kind of attention it usually gave to dangerous things. Things that needed to be watched carefully. "Why do you continue?" asked. Its voice was quiet now, meant only for the humans to hear. "You have won the rite, you have proven your point. What more do you want?" Did not answer. She remained still, her eyes open but seeing nothing, or perhaps seeing everything. And stood beside her like guards made of stone. Their faces showed no expression. Their bodies showed no movement. They might as well have been machines. In the seats above, a young turned to its elder and asked the question that many were thinking. "Master, what is happening? Why do they not stop?" The elder was silent for a long moment. When it finally spoke, its voice was heavy with something that sounded like regret. "We made a mistake," the elder said. "We thought we understood humans. We watched them from far away and saw their constant movement. We saw their fidgeting and their restlessness. We thought this meant they were weak." "Are they not weak?" the young one asked. "No," the elder replied. "They are something else entirely, something we did not expect." "What are they?" The elder turned to look at the three figures standing motionless on the floor below. "They are predators," it said, "predators that learn to wait." The word spread through the station like fire. Predators. The humans were predators, not the loud, obvious kind that chased their prey through the forest. They were the other kind. The kind that sat in the darkness and waited. The kind that could remain perfectly still for hours, days, even weeks, until their prey came close enough to catch. This was the truth that the aliens had missed. They had seen human movement and thought it was weakness. But movement was just what humans did when they were not hunting. When they were hunting, when they were focused, when they truly needed to be still, nothing in the universe could make them move. On the station, word of the rite had spread to every ship and every corner. Aliens who had left the chamber were now watching on screens in their rooms. Aliens on distant planets were receiving reports and recordings. Everyone wanted to see the humans. Everyone wanted to understand. And the more they watched, the more afraid they became. "Look at their eyes," a captain said to his crew. They were watching the feed from their ship, which was docked at the station. "They are not struggling. They are not fighting to stay still. They are at peace." "How is that possible?" a crew member asked. "I do not know," the captain replied. "But I know this: I never want to make an enemy of these creatures." In the council chamber had returned to its seat. The elder sat alone, watching the humans with ancient eyes that had seen many things: wars and peace, birth and death, the rise and fall of empires, but it had never seen anything like this. 14 hours had now passed. The humans showed no sign of stopping. Thought about what this meant. The council had laughed at humanity. They had mocked them and called them restless. They had expected the humans to fail quickly and leave in shame. Instead, the humans had done something impossible. They had beaten the at stillness. They had proven that their movement was a choice, not a compulsion. And now they were sending another message, a message that was only beginning to understand. The message was simple: we can wait. We can wait longer than you. We can wait until the stars burn out if we need to, and you should be afraid of that. At the 16-hour mark, something changed. A small group of aliens entered the chamber. They were not delegates or officials. They were ordinary citizens of the station, representatives of the many species who lived and worked there. They walked slowly to the floor and stopped a safe distance from the humans. Then one by one they knelt. Watch this with surprise. Kneeling was a sign of deep respect in many cultures. It was not something done lightly. And yet here were aliens from a dozen different species, kneeling before the humans who had not moved. "What are you doing?" called out. One of the aliens, an old with gray skin, looked up at the elder. "We are showing respect," it said. "These humans have proven themselves worthy, more than worthy. They have shown us something we had forgotten." "What have they shown you?" asked. "That strength is not always loud," the old replied. "That power is not always in motion. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply stand still and let the universe move around you." More aliens began to enter the chamber. Some came alone, others came in groups. They filled the empty seats. They stood in the aisles. They watched the humans with new eyes. 18 hours passed. The humans had now beaten every record in the history of the right. No species had ever remained still for this long, not even close. But still they did not move. Stood in her place, her mind floating in a space beyond time. She was aware of everything around her: the whispers of the crowd, the weight of the air, the beating of her own heart, slow and steady like a drum in the darkness. But none of it touched her. She was the mountain. She was the stone. She was eternal. She thought about all the things that had brought her to this moment: the years of training, the meditation at dawn, the long hours of practice. But more than that, she thought about what it meant to be human. Humans were not the fastest species in the galaxy. They were not the strongest. They were not but they had something else. They had will. They had the ability to choose what they would be and then become it completely. Right now had chosen to be still, and nothing would change that until she decided otherwise. Beside her was thinking similar thoughts. He remembered all the missions where he had waited in silence, all the cold nights, all the endless hours. He had trained his body to ignore discomfort. He had trained his mind to find peace in any situation. This was just another mission, and he would complete it. Was the youngest, but she was not the weakest. She had her own strength, her own peace. She thought of all the books she had read about alien cultures, all the languages she had learned, all the knowledge she had gathered. She had spent years sitting still, reading, studying, learning. This was no different. At the 20-hour mark, Elder made a decision. The elder rose from its seat and walked to the center of the chamber once again. It stood before the humans and spoke in a voice that all could hear. "Enough," said. "You have proven your point. You have earned our respect. Please stop now." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, eyes focused. She looked at with a gaze that was calm and clear. "Do you understand now?" asked. Her voice was soft, but it carried through the entire chamber. "I understand," replied. "Your movement is a choice. Your stillness is a weapon. You are not the restless ones. You are something far more dangerous." Smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it was there. "We are humans," she said, "and we are ready to take our place among the stars." With those words, she took a single step forward, beside her, and did the same. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the three humans moved for the first time in nearly a day. They moved smoothly, easily, as if they had only been standing for a few minutes. There was no stiffness, no stumbling, no sign that they had just done something impossible. Watched them with something close to wonder. In all its long life, the elder had never felt so completely surprised. The humans were not what anyone had expected. They were so much more. The days following the rite were unlike anything the station had ever seen. News of what the humans had done spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. Every planet, every station, every ship received the recordings. They saw the three humans standing still for 20 hours. They saw the fail. They saw the kneeling crowds and the stunned faces of the council. Everything changed. Ambassador was no longer treated as a visitor from a lesser species. When she walked through the halls of the station, aliens stepped aside to let her pass. Some bowed their heads. Others simply watched with eyes full of respect and perhaps a little fear, and walked beside her as they always did. But now they were not just her companions. They were symbols of what humanity could do. Every alien who saw them thought the same thing. If these three can do the impossible, what can the rest of their species do? On the third day after the rite, Elder called for a special meeting of the council. The chamber filled once again with delegates from every species. But this time there was no laughter. There were no mocking whispers. The room was quiet and serious. Stood in the center of the floor, alone this time, and waited in the seats above, watching with calm faces. Rose and addressed the assembly. "We are here today to discuss the status of humanity in this council," the elder said. "As you all know, the humans completed the rite of presence 3 days ago. They did more than complete it. They shattered every record we have ever kept. They remained still for over 20 hours, longer than any species in our history." A murmur moved through the crowd, but no one spoke against the elder. "This council has made many mistakes over the years," continued. "We have judged species too quickly. We have assumed we understood them when we did not. With humanity, we made the greatest mistake of all. We saw their movement and thought it was weakness. We were wrong." Turned to face directly. The elder's ancient eyes were soft now, filled with something that looked like regret. "Ambassador, I speak for this council when I say that we are sorry. We laughed at your species. We mocked you and called you names. We expected you to fail. We hoped you would fail. For this, we apologize." Nodded slowly. "I accept your apology, Elder, but I must be honest with you. We did not come here looking for an apology. We came looking for a place." "A place?" asked. "Yes, a place among the stars, a seat at this table. We are a young species, Elder, we know this. We have much to learn. But we are also strong in ways that you are only beginning to understand. We want to be your partners, your allies, your friends." The chamber was silent. Delegates looked at each other, uncertain what to say. Finally, a elder stood from its seat. It was the same one who had mocked the humans on their first day. "I have something to say," he announced. Its voice was rough, but there was no anger in it. "When the humans arrived, I was one of the loudest voices against them. I called them prey animals. I said they would never belong here. I was wrong." The turn to face. "What you did in the rite was not just impressive. It was terrifying. You showed us that you can become whatever you need to become. When you need to move, you move. When you need to be still, you become stone. This is not weakness. This is something else. Something we do not have a word for." "We call it adaptability," said. Adaptability, the repeated as if tasting the word. Yes, I think you are right, and I think any species that can adapt like you can is a species worth knowing. It paused. I vote to grant humanity full membership in this council. One by one, other delegates stood to give their votes. The voted yes. The voted yes. Even they, whose elder flow had lost to the humans, voted yes. When the counting was finished, it was unanimous. Every species in the council had voted to accept humanity. Nodded slowly and turned back to, "It is done. Humanity is now a full member of the Galactic Council. You have all the rights and responsibilities that come with this status. Your ships may travel freely. Your people may settle on any open world. Your voice will be heard in these chambers." Bowed her head. "Thank you, Elder. We will not make you regret this decision." "I believe you," said, "but I must ask you something, Ambassador, something that has been on my mind since the rite ended." Ask, said. "Why did you continue after you had won? You had already beaten you had already proven your worth. Why did you stay still for 8 more hours?" Was quiet for a moment. She thought about the question carefully before answering. "Because I wanted you to understand something," she finally said. "When we stopped, it was our choice. We did not stop because we were tired. We did not stop because we could not continue. We stopped because we decided to stop. That is the truth about humanity, Elder. Everything we do is a choice. Our movement, our stillness, our war, our peace. We choose all of it. And once you understand that, you understand us." Stared at her for a long time. Then slowly the Elder nodded. "I think I am beginning to understand," said. "And I think I am glad that you have chosen to be our friends rather than our enemies." "So are we," replied with a small smile. The ceremony ended and the delegates began to leave the chamber. But before could go, the flow approached her. The liquid being floated close, its body shimmering with soft light. "Ambassador," Flo said. Its voice was like rain falling on water. "I must speak with you." "Of course," said. "When I lost the rite, I felt shame, deep shame. I had never lost before. I had never failed at anything." Flo paused, its body rippling slightly. "But now, after thinking about it, I do not feel shame anymore. I feel grateful." "Grateful?" asked. "Yes, you taught me something that day. You taught me that there are forms of strength I had never considered. Your people are remarkable, Ambassador. I hope that we can learn from each other." Reached out and placed her hand near Flo's liquid body. She could feel the warmth of its energy field. "I hope so too," she said. "The universe is large and we are all small. The only way to grow is to learn from those who are different from us." Flo made a sound that might have been laughter. "You are wise for such a young species." "We try," said. Later that night, stood at the window of her room, looking out at the stars. And were with her, all 3 of them silent in the comfortable way of people who have been through something difficult together. "We did it," said quietly. "I still cannot believe we did it." "We did more than complete a test," replied. "We changed how they see us, forever." Nodded. She thought about all the humans across the galaxy who would benefit from what they had done, the traders who would now be respected, the colonists who would now be welcomed, the children who would grow up in a universe that saw them as equals. "This is just the beginning," she said. "There is so much more to do, so many more species to meet, so many more things to learn." "Are you ready for it?" asked. Smiled. It was a real smile this time, warm and full of hope. "I am always ready," she said. "That is what it means to be human. We are always ready for whatever comes next. We move when we need to move. We stand still when we need to stand still. And we never, ever give up." Outside the window, the stars burned bright against the endless darkness. Somewhere out there, humanity was spreading, building, growing, becoming something new. The council had laughed at them once. They would never laugh again. Because now they understood the truth. Humans were not the restless ones. They were the patient ones. And patience in the end conquered all.